Hi, ladies. This is Kristen Burgess from naturalbirthandbabycare.com, and today I'm going to be teaching on going from birthing to baby, the stages of childbirth. While I give this talk, I'm going to most likely use conventional terminology. This is simply because you'll be familiar with it, and you'll be familiar with it when others use this same terminology. But you are, of course, welcome to use alternatives, and if I say something that's conventional, such as labor or contraction, and you want to replace it with something like birthing time or rush or birthing wave, just do so mentally in your head while I talk about that. All right, we'll start off with signs that your birthing day is beginning. And I find this topic to be continually fascinating. I got an email today from somebody who's on baby number 7, and she says she still always wonders, how will I know? And I'm the same way, actually, on baby number 6 myself, and so I always like to hear about this. The first thing that I have in my notes is remember to be patient and grateful when you're waiting for your birthing time to begin. It's hard to do that sometimes. Most of us have felt that I'm going to stay pregnant forever kind of feeling. In fact, when I was pregnant with my 3rd baby, Brennan, I had been having a lot of pre-labor signs, and it was about 2 weeks before his due date, and I'd been in a good mood, and then for some reason I just got really grumpy about things, and I got to where I was complaining and worried that labor was never going to start, or when it did start that it would last forever, and I really got into a negative place, and all those nice signs that I'd had that my body was building up just stopped. And it wasn't until right around this due date, and I was reading some birth stories and reading about other moms and how they were feeling happy and grateful and everything to have the baby, that my attitude changed. And it was right after that change that things started in earnest, and just within a couple of days, Brennan was born. And I always think maybe he was waiting because he didn't want to come out to a grumpy mama. But it's kind of a story to illustrate that being in a bad state of mind, I mean, I spent 2 weeks being grumpy when I really didn't have to, and I don't know if that made any difference physiologically on when he was going to be born or not, but it certainly made those last 2 weeks of his pregnancy not so enjoyable for me. So remember, just be patient and grateful, even if you feel super pregnant and you're sure that you're going to be pregnant forever. I promise your baby's eventually going to come out, and it's better to just try and enjoy those last couple weeks of pregnancy. So let's talk about the signs that your birthing's beginning. Dilation and effacement are very poor indicators of when things are going to be happening or how fast they're going to happen. They're just not a good way to tell. There's moms who are at less than a centimeter dilated when they go to a doctor's appointment in the morning and they have a baby in their arms that night. There are moms who go to a doctor's appointment and they're 5 or 6 centimeters dilated, and it's still quite a few days before they have their baby. When I was in labor with Galen, my midwife checked me and I was 3 centimeters. She decided to go home and go to sleep. Well, when she walked back in about 2 hours later, I already had Galen in my arms. So it's just really a very poor indicator of how quickly things are going to go along, or even how close you are. Now, these are some good signs. These are very obvious signs that things are beginning. Strong, close contractions that don't stop when you change activities. So if you're having very strong rushes, they seem to be coming at regular intervals close together, and when you change your activity, so you go lie down, or if you've been laying down, you get up and do something, get a shower, have something to eat, they don't stop, that's a good sign that things are happening. If you have contractions that steadily build and come at regular intervals, then that is another good sign that things are starting. So that means that they may start off pretty weak or puttery, but then they keep building gradually over time. That's another very good indication, and they're coming regularly. Another sign is your water breaking. Now, it can still take a while for even contractions to start after your water breaks, and definitely for things to become regular. So even if your water breaks, don't go rushing off to the hospital right away, because as soon as you do, especially with broken waters, the clock starts ticking, and also infection it's more possible to introduce infection. So stay home until you've got a nice, well-established pattern, even if your water's broken. Now, if you have just a slow leak, it can reseal. So that could still mean that it's a couple days away before the big thing happens. But a gush probably means that things are getting started and you're going to be meeting your baby soon. Now, those are real obvious ways that it could start, but things can start more slowly with build-up over time. And when I say build-up over time, I'm talking maybe even days or weeks. Now, the term for this is technically prodromal labor, and that's a really bad term. The reason it's a bad term is, going back to my story about when I was pregnant with Brennan, it tends to put you in a poor state of mind because the definition of prodromal labor means that things get really regular. Usually this happens to women in the evening, and then they just putter out. So the next morning they still have no baby. And it's hard for a lot of women because they get excited, they think maybe this is it, and it can also be physically exhausting sometimes and emotionally exhausting to have this start, build up, and then die away. So I don't think that it's a good idea to use the term prodromal labor because that automatically puts you in that negative state of mind. Instead, think about it that your body is getting ready for things to happen. It's softening, it's working, it's getting your baby acquainted to the rigors of birthing. So instead, use a what do I want to do now strategy. So this is a time when you should honor and respect yourself. So if this starts happening to you, realize this is a time in my life that I need to slow down. Take it easy. Just enjoy those last couple weeks of pregnancy. And when it starts in the evening, ask yourself, what do I want to do? Maybe I watch a whole bunch of movies or take a warm bath or read a book. Just do something to pamper yourself and relax. Then go to bed, and if you wake up with no baby, well, then you can have a nice, relaxed day the next day. But try and make this more of a sacred time, so to speak, when you honor what's happening and you just take it easy without worrying about it. I had this experience when I was waiting for honor, a couple of weeks of things seeming to get real regular every evening, and then they would just putter out. But in contrast to when I was waiting on Brennan, I had a hard pregnancy with honor, a lot of emotional challenges, and I was doing a lot better at that point, and I didn't want to take the chance of getting back into that negative depression that I had pulled out of. So I really focused not on the fact that it was annoying to me to have these rushes every night regularly that never led to a baby, and especially since my midwife was leaving the country, and so I knew she was going to miss my baby's birth if I didn't have my baby by a certain date. But I just let go of that. Excuse me. I just let go of all of that, and I just waited for her and kind of rolled with the punches, as the expression goes. And so I was really in a joyful place when she finally decided to make her entrance. So again, like I said, this is a time to take it easy, respect your body and yourself, and just enjoy where you are and know that you'll be meeting your baby really soon. And if it gives you comfort, think that your baby's packing on a few more ounces of fat and cute babiness. Excuse me, ladies, I'm recording this early in the morning before my children wake up, so my voice isn't as good as usual. Another sign of your labor beginning is that your baby drops. And this term is technically called lightening, and it's called that because when your baby drops, it means that baby's head settles deep down in your pelvis, and it actually does make you feel like you're a bit lighter because you can suddenly breathe better. And you can usually visibly see that your belly has gotten lower, and you can definitely tell by your breathing. And oftentimes you end up going to the bathroom more often because baby is now settled firmly on your bladder. This usually happens a couple of weeks before birthing for first-time moms, so it means that things are coming but not necessarily that they're about to start. It usually happens just before or even during birthing for subsequent babies. So if you're expecting your second or more baby, you probably won't drop until much closer to your birthing time. Another sign is a very strong nesting urge. So you've probably felt this to some extent throughout your third trimester or even in your second trimester. But this is a very strong burst of energy and an undeniable urge to clean and straighten. And this is a good urge to have. Many a mom has realized she's going to have a baby while she's in the middle of scrubbing the kitchen. But remember what I said about taking it easy. You don't want to wear yourself out or stay up late cleaning or anything like that. Still get your rest. Another sign is your mucus plug. Now, the mucus plug is literally a thick plug of mucus which seals the cervix. You can lose bits of this for weeks, and this is one of the pre-labor signs that I said I was having with Brennan, as I had been losing bits of mucus plug. So when I'd wipe with my tissue in the bathroom, I would see streaks of mucus on the tissue. And that's normal. It can reseal and rebuild itself too. But when you have what's called a bloody show, that's usually an indication that things will happen in about 48 hours. That's the guideline midwives give. A bloody show is the mucus is tinged with pink or red. You might even have a big blob of mucus that's pink or red tinged, which is why it's called a bloody show. And that's a good sign that things are really getting started. Usually it's one of the earlier signs, and you may not see this at all, but you may see it. Okay, another sign can be feeling slightly crampy, like your period cramps, and your Braxton Hicks contractions will have that kind of a period cramp kind of edge to them. And if you're feeling your Braxton Hicks get more regular and have that little edge, that's a good indication that things are starting, especially if they start to get closer together and stronger, or if you have a show with them, that's a good indication. A persistent lower backache, so you have an ache in your back, and I haven't had this experience, but moms tell me that it seems to radiate around to the front almost. That can be a good sign of labor beginning. And then, of course, going back to the Braxton Hicks, those becoming regular, having that slightly crampy edge, with or without a bloody show, that's a good sign that things are getting started. And that's how most of my own birthing times have begun. Loose bowels are another good sign. Your body tends to be really effective at cleaning things out, so to speak, to make way for baby. So if you have, you find yourself having those slightly crampy Braxton Hicks and you're running to the toilet every little bit for a while your body proceeds to flush itself out, that's very normal, and it can either just be frequent trips to have a bowel movement, it can even be slightly runny and diarrhea-like. Make sure you're staying hydrated, and if you're concerned, call your care provider. But it's very physiologically normal. In the end, you will know when it's the real thing. It's going to get to a point where it's undeniable that I'm having a baby.